Okay, welcome all to TEAL Tuesday. I am Scott, your host for the Teal Shirt Report podcast. This is Teal Tuesday. Monumental things happening with Jacksonville Jaguars football. Yes, we all know about Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We do know that Tony Baselli was brought in the interview process after the first two guys turned down the Jaguars, Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen, and then Liam was brought back and decided to take the job at about, I don't think it was 12 million. I think it's approximately $13 million a year. Tony Baselli was brought in on that interview process. And now, as part of Tony being brought in on the interview process, it was bandied about and talked about, would Tony take a position with the Jacksonville Jaguars in the front office? And he really has. He, by the Jags brass, Shad Khan signing off on this, and Liam Cohen, I know, signing off on it as well. Tony has just been so complimentary of the Jacksonville Jaguars' new head coach pick. I heard Tony when they had the first Duval for new Jags head coach Liam Cohen, that Tony said he knew right away that was their guy. Like 30 minutes into the interview, 5 minutes into the interview, Tony knew that Liam Cohen was going to be the guy they hired. And keep in mind, Tony was not involved in the first interview. That was Trent Baalke and Shad Khan. Baalke was fired after two coaches turned down the Jags overtures. Liam Cohen was then recontacted after Baalke was fired in about that same period of time. And then Liam Cohen started gauging the interest is more and more for him. The money, I believe, was upped. That's part of it. And hey, welcome to Teal Tuesday. Here we are. We're covering the Jacksonville Jaguars from the Teal Shirt Report podcast from Big J Report, sponsored by Saucer Realty and Capital, the madmaxmix.weebly.com, and Lakeview Fall of Hits, where JC does a show live from the pub on Thursday nights. This is our effort to do a little something on Tuesday. And you may see us do live streams on Tuesday. This one, this is a lot of fun. This is in the can, obviously, but I want to tell you guys that a lot of things were happening. February the 3rd, officially on February the 3rd, Tony Baselli, former Jacksonville Jaguars left tackle who's in the pride of the Jaguars, is now a Pro Football Hall of Famer, the only Jacksonville Jaguars player ever to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It seems like just a couple of years ago. And Tony should have been inducted, in my mind, 2 years earlier than he was. Hopefully there'll be an announcement on Fred Taylor getting in. He's a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well. But we do want to make that announcement that Tony Baselli has been hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars to a front office position as the executive vice president. Now, keep in mind that the last time the Jaguars made an AFC title game, Tom Coughlin was the executive vice president. Tom Coughlin's been involved, and he's in the pride of the Jags, and he should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame too, in my mind, and I think he will at some point in time, hopefully sooner than later. But I will tell you that Tony Baselli's in the Hall of Fame. He's in the pride of the Jaguars, and he was brought in by Shad Khan during the interview process after, let's face it, it went bad. Ben Johnson took the Chicago Bears job after his first interview with the Jaguars with Trent Baalke and Shad Khan. Then Liam Cohen came in. There were numerous other potential head coaches that were interviewed. I think as many as 10 at least, right? Something like that, 9 or 10 potential head coaching candidates. And most of you know who they all were. And, Robert Sala, Aaron Glenn, etc. But after the first two guys turned the Jaguars down, I guess the first two guys they wanted, Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen, then Shad said, well, we got to do something here. Trent Baalke was fired. Tony Baselli was brought in during the interview process after the first two coaches apparently kind of turned the Jags down. I don't know if Ben Johnson officially turned the Jags down, but he took the Chicago Bears job, so it was kind of like a slap in the face. Ben Johnson was rumored to be going either to the Bears, which he did go to. It came down to three teams: Bears, Jaguars, and the Raiders. The Raiders, incidentally, have hired Pete Carroll, and they've also hired Chip Kelly as their offensive coordinator at this juncture. Raiders making some big moves in the offseason as far as their coaching situation. But the Jaguars have two with Liam Cohen, now the head football coach with the Jaguars. And it seemed like when Tony was brought in on the interview process, Tony was really blown away by Liam Cohen because it was officially, I believe, a second interview that Tony was a part of with Liam Cohen, and he knew right away that, hey, Liam, and Tony is Tony Baselli, Hall of Famer, former Jacksonville Jaguars player, left tackle Tony Baselli, really never waned from his positivity over one Liam Cohen, who is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? So it's great news. It's really good news that Tony Baselli has been offered and accepted a position as executive vice president of the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a front office position, and it looks like it reminds me a little bit of somewhat of the 49ers current setup. Even though they had an off year, they've had great seasons and great success. But you got a former player actually from this team that's the new executive vice president. Now we know Mr. Waugh is the interim GM. It has been stated the Jaguars would hire a new GM sometime in February. Tony has not been given that title, but he is executive vice president, which means everything really would run between the GM, the coach, and the executive vice president. When Tom Coughlin held basically, I believe, pretty close to the same position, or at least it was called the same thing, the executive vice president, everything ran through Tom Coughlin. When Dave Caldwell wanted to make a draft pick, it went through Tom Coughlin. When they wanted to make any moves, it went through Tom Coughlin because he was the executive vice president. So Tony Baselli he's got the gold jacket, the gold Hall of Fame jacket. He's in the pride of the Jaguars and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And now he will have some pressure, but it should be a fun. I'm sure Tony's going to get a sizable paycheck too from Mr. Khan. But and Tony has his NFL league office connections by being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was a great player. And I gotta believe it's going to mean in the draft that we're going to get an offensive lineman. John Gaylor says round 2. I'm hoping for round 1 for an offensive lineman. The best possible offensive guard, offensive tackle. I think the Jags need an offensive guard and an offensive tackle, a defensive tackle, and a cornerback. We'll see what order they come in, but those, to me, seem to be the biggest needs at this point. So Tony Baselli has been named the executive vice president of the Jaguars. The interim G, Mr. Waugh, who John Gaylor says, man, he's a smart guy. But yeah, he'd have to be if he's, was a Jaguars general manager. Sure, he's a smart guy. And Jacksonville Jaguars general manager search, Ethan Waugh takes over as the interim general manager. There have been some potential candidates that have been announced for the position. I think it's going to be more of a position of strength and probably a guy that's going to manage the salary cap. I think whoever they hire to be the GM will be a guy that manages the salary cap. We're not sure who it's going to be yet, but I believe it will be a guy that manages the salary cap, because I don't think Tony Baselli and Liam Cohen, they've got to be aware of the fact that, hey, we could only spend this much of Shad Khan's money, and along the rules of, I think Shad's got almost an unlimited supply of money, but he likes to pinch Benjamins. But I will tell you that I believe that, following the rules, and of course the salary cap goes up, seems like almost every year through the league. And the Jags have a lot of draft picks, a lot of draft capital. Come on, Tony, the executive vice president of the Jaguars, need offensive linemen, and Tony knows this. You need an offensive guard and offensive tackle. You also need probably a cornerback and a stud defensive tackle. Those would be my four most glaring needs. And with this offensive line situation, you got to keep your quarterback healthy. He's been injured basically the last 2 years. The offensive line needs to improve, which will help the running game as well. You're listening to and watching Teal Tuesday right here on the Teal Shirt Report podcast from BigJReport.com. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Tony Baselli, the big news. He is now the executive vice president of the Jacksonville Jaguars. The GM hiring is pending. We told you about Ethan Waugh as the interim GM, but he was kind of Balky's assistant. So I hope a permanent GM will be hopefully announced, as I believe Mr. Khan and some of the Jags brass said what they thought that a new GM would be hired in February. So you've hired the coach ahead of hiring the GM. You've hired the executive vice president and Tony Baselli now ahead of hiring a permanent GM. Does this sound like Ethan Waugh has a shot at this? I think he probably does. I think it's whoever can run this. I think Tony Baselli and Liam Cohen run the team, and the GM's probably going to be running the salary cap in this type of situation. Please leave your comments. Most people around town that I've talked to are extremely ecstatic about Tony Baselli. Is there a shot of Mark Brunell coming back, perhaps possibly as the quarterback coach? He's still with the Detroit Lions, even though Ben Johnson, the guy he really liked a lot, is the offensive, or actually Ben Johnson's the head coach of the Chicago Bears now. But, again, Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator with the Lions, and they came off a 15-2 record, and Mark Brunell was the quarterback coach. So the big news is Tony Baselli is now the executive vice president of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He'll be working very closely with Liam Cohen, the new head coach of the Jaguars, who Tony has nothing but glowing things to say about. Liam Cohen. As far as your editor here, your host for the Teal Shirt Report podcast, I think anything short of 2 playoff appearances in the next 4 years would be just disappointing. I think the Jags need to go to a level they've never been to, making it to a bowl by winning that Lamar Hunt AFC Championship trophy. Coaching staff is starting to come together now. These are the guys officially as of Tuesday morning, February the 4th. Anthony Campanelli came from Green Bay. He's been with other teams too. He's a new defensive coordinator for the Jaguars. Linebackers coach is Team Lukabo. Liam Cohen is your head coach of the Jaguars. Matt Edwards coaches the defensive line now. And you got a couple of holdovers from Doug Peterson's staff. And these guys really deserve to be kept on. Heath Farewell, special teams coordinator. Heck, your punter was in the Pro Bowl. Your long snapper was in the Pro Bowl. Your rookie kicker. Cam Little, that's his name, right? Cam Little. Gosh, he had a great rookie season, man. He just made almost every kick they asked him to make. And you had it working on special teams. Great punter. Logan Cook was in the Pro Bowl. Cam Little had a really great, in my mind, a very good to great rookie season as a kicker. Made a bunch of kicks. Matisic, the long snapper, was in the Pro Bowl with Logan Cook. So, yes, I think that's a good move. Keeping Heath Fairwell, as special teams coordinator. One other holdover from the old staff, Richard Angelo. These may be the only two guys that come back off of Doug Peterson's staff. He's the tight ends coach. And in my mind, he's done a good job with the tight ends. We know about the torn labrum injury to Evan Ingram. But you look down the roster at the tight ends, Luke Farrell has been a guy that has gradually and really improved his game. But even Brenton Strange, except for a couple of fumbles he had, Brenton Strange was, getting into some areas where he was catching a lot of balls. He's a good blocking tight end for the most part. And so Richard Angelo has the tight ends going in the right direction. He's been retained by head coach Liam Cohen. So Richard Angelo, tight ends coach, remains with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So does special teams coach Heath Fairwell. Liam Cohen is your head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Matt Edwards, defensive line coach. Anthony Campanelli is your new defensive coordinator. And Team Lukabu is the linebackers coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're watching and listening to Teal Tuesday. We're glad to be here. The Jacksonville Jaguars got a lot of excitement. They got a new head coach, a new executive vice president in Tony Baselli. And when Tom Coughlin held the position was called the executive vice president, right? The executive vice president of football operations. Tom Coughlin held the same position. The Jaguars in the 2017 season made the AFC title game with a loss to the Patriots. Here I go again, executive producer JC. The Patriots, one penalty for 10 yards in that game. I'll leave it alone for now. Tom Coughlin was involved in all three of the Jacksonville Jaguars AFC title appearances, although they did lose all three. Now it's time to take it to a higher level. Hey, give us a thumbs up. Go Jags. And if you would, leave us a comment, like the show. I've got to see 2 playoff appearances at least within the next 4 years. And we got to make it to the bowl. At least an appearance in the bowl, whether we win it or not, at least an appearance in the Super Bowl for the Jacksonville Jaguars over the next 4 years. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to have a completely new stadium built. As you know, there's a year coming where the team will play either in Gainesville or Orlando, while the new stadium is completely being built here in Jacksonville. We've got actually a rundown of the time and the events that we will actually take a look at on another podcast. You're watching Teal Tuesday right now, but sometime this week or this weekend, we'll take a look at the actual timeline of when the stadium's going to be built, when the team will have to go away for a year completely and play in either Gainesville or Orlando. I'm kind of rooting for Gainesville myself. So that's where we are. We kind of ran down the coaching staff, which includes defensive coordinator Anthony Campanelli now, Tim Lukabu, the linebackers coach, Liam Cohen, of course, the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, making the hires. Defensive line coach now is Matt Edwards. Heath Fairwell has been retained from the Doug Peterson staff, special teams coordinator. He's been kept on. So is Richard Angelo, who worked with the tight ends as the tight ends coach. So those are the coaches thus far as we make that announcement here on TEAL Tuesday. The big news is the Jacksonville Jaguars have completely, they said there was a position available for him, and now they have made Hall of Famer, former Jacksonville Jaguars offensive tackle, left tackle Tony Baselli, in the pride of the Jaguars in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He has now been hired officially as the executive vice president of operations. I believe the exact title is executive vice president of football operations for the Jacksonville Jaguars. A new GM probably try to keep Tony and Liam straight. However, I think that the new GM will be more of a kind of a dollars and cents numbers guy that'll probably run the salary cap. Taking a look, we did promise you on the next podcast that we were going to take a look. And by the way, we're brought to you by Saucer Realty and Capital for your real estate needs in North Florida. Go to our website at bigjreport.com, whether it's home, residential, business, or commercial real estate, Saucer Realty and Capital. There's a link on our homepage right near the 24/7 North Florida weather reports on our homepage at bigjreport.com. We had promised to take a look at the SEC and how everybody kind of finished. In the power rankings that I'm still working on, I've got to put Georgia number one in the completed 2024 season. After all, they won the SEC championship game in overtime over Texas. Georgia got a bye. Texas did make it to the semifinals, went a little bit, I guess Texas eventually got beat by Ohio State in the semifinals. Georgia made it to, they got a bye. Texas was around longer than Georgia in the playoff is what I'm trying to say. But the overall record, Texas was 13-3. Georgia was 11-3. I think I still got to put Georgia number one in the power rankings, Texas 2. Tennessee actually had a better record than Alabama. And Tennessee also, I believe, beat Alabama, as I recall, too. Tennessee's 10-3. Alabama 9-4. LSU 9-4. Ole Miss 10-3. I'm still going to have to take a little time to put the power rankings together, but at this juncture, I got Georgia 1, Texas 2, Tennessee 3, and Ole Miss got to 10 wins. They did win the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville over Duke. So where do you put Ole Miss? Where do you put Bama? I'm going to continue to work on the power rankings. I've still got a little bit of high-level thinking to do, but I have no doubt I'm putting Georgia number one, Texas number 2, and we're going to put Tennessee number 3. And then I'm kind of left with either and Alabama lost a bowl game, so we're probably going to put Ole Miss ahead of Alabama in the power rankings. Florida came on strong with wins over LSU. Ole Miss in the conference beat Florida State, and the Florida Gators won the bowl game over Tulane. So I'm still working on these SEC power rankings. We're going to put them together. My feeling is Georgia won the Southeastern Conference championship game. I'm going to have Georgia number one in the bigjreport.com SEC power rankings. It'll be Georgia number 1, Texas 2, Tennessee 3, and we'll work on who's going to be in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th positions. The Gators, as you know, finished 8-5 overall and 4-4 in the conference. Hey, Vanderbilt won 3 conference games. They're not going to be at the rock bottom of this thing. That's going to be Mississippi State, who was 0-8 in the conference and 2-10 overall. They'll be rock bottom. So we're going to continue to take a look at SEC football. We cover the Jacksonville Jaguars, North Florida Entertainment. There's a lot of great concerts, including the Little River Band coming to Jacksonville, Gladys Knight, the mega group Chicago. Go to bigjreport.com, scroll the Neighbors 2 page, and you'll see a lot of updated concerts coming to our area in North Florida and surrounding areas. This is Teal Tuesday on the Teal Shirt Report podcast from BigJReport.com. Big news, Executive Vice President. The new Executive Vice President for the Jacksonville Jaguars is Tony Baselli. He's the new Executive Vice President of he's the Executive Vice President of Football Operations with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Your new head coach, Liam Cohen. It's going to get exciting. The draft is around the corner. I told John Gaylor the Jags need offensive linemen. He said he sees an offensive lineman maybe as early as round 2. I'm hoping for a first-round offensive lineman. But, I'm looking for an offensive guard, an offensive tackle, pretty high in the draft, with a defensive tackle sprinkled in there and a cornerback too. That would be coming in the April 2025 draft, which now at this juncture, Tony Baselli will be a part of making those picks along with Jags head coach Liam Cohen. That's going to do it for Till Tuesday. You guys have a great day. Thank you for watching and listening.